The buzzing against my hip cuts through the emergency room noise like a knife through silence. I'm elbow deep in trauma, my third critical case in under 2 hours, when my phone won't stop vibrating. Nobody disturbs me during shift unless it's urgent. I slip into the supply closet, peeling off gloves stained with someone else's emergency. When I see my daughter's name flashing on screen, my heart drops into my stomach. Sweetheart. I press the phone so hard against my ear it hurts. Her voice comes through broken, desperate. Mom, something's wrong with the door. My key won't work. What do you mean it won't work? Hospital announcements blare overhead, making it hard to hear her trembling words. I keep trying, but nothing happens. I'm standing outside, and the rain is so heavy and Oscar is crying in his carrier, and I don't know what to do. I squeeze my eyes shut, picturing my 12-year-old standing on that porch, uniform soaked through, holding our cat while water pours from the sky. Where's your grandmother? Is Aunt Tessa home? Nobody's answering. I can see lights through the windows, but they won't come to the door. Something cold spreads through my chest. Stay right there. Find shelter on the side porch. I'm coming now. I burst from that closet, nearly knocking over Dr. Martinez. The ER looks like a war zone, machines beeping, patients everywhere, organized chaos. Gianna, we need you in Trauma Bay 3. The gunshot victim from the accident requires. My daughter's locked outside in this storm. I have to go. His expression shifts. We're completely overwhelmed. Can't someone else handle it? There isn't anyone else. The words taste bitter because they've always been true. I push toward the supervisor's station where Nancy is buried in paperwork. I need to leave. Family emergency. She sighs like I've personally inconvenienced her entire evening. Gianna, we're already down 3 nurses. Can this possibly wait? My father just died, Nancy. The statement lands heavy between us. Go. Rain hammers my windshield as I race home. Through the blurred glass, I spot her small shape huddled where the porch offers minimal protection. Her hair plasters to her head, school clothes completely drenched. The cat carrier beside her feet produces miserable sounds that break my heart. I leave the engine running and sprint through the downpour. Water soaks through my scrubs instantly. I'm here, baby. I've got you. She collapses against me, shaking. Why won't my key work, Mom? I don't know, honey. Let me try mine. As we move toward the front entrance, I notice the curtains shift slightly. Someone's definitely home. My key slides in smoothly but refuses to turn, exactly like she described.
I pound on the door with my fist.
Hello? Marjorie? Tessa? Open this door right now. When it swings open, I'm staring at my mother. She stands there with a wine glass in her perfectly manicured hand, silver hair styled like she's hosting a dinner party. Behind her, my half-sister leans against the wall, swirling her own glass of red wine like we're interrupting happy hour. Well, my mother says slowly, taking a deliberate sip while her eyes travel over our soaked bodies. You made it here faster than I anticipated. What's happening? I try steering my daughter inside from the rain. Why aren't our keys functioning? She blocks the doorway with surprising strength. We've made a decision. You and your daughter don't belong here anymore. The words don't register at first. They sound foreign, impossible. What are you talking about? This is where we live. Not anymore. Tessa steps forward wearing a smirk that makes my blood boil. She gestures toward the street. Your belongings are by the curb. What survived anyway? The rain's been pretty relentless today. I follow her pointing finger and see cardboard boxes disintegrating in the storm. Clothes and books spilling across the waterlogged lawn. My medical textbooks. My daughter's school projects. Our entire lives melting in the rain. Oscar releases another heartbreaking cry from his carrier. Something hardens in my chest as I look at the woman who gave birth to me, the woman I moved home to help when Dad got sick. I see nothing recognizable in her expression. Understood. My voice comes out surprisingly calm. Tessa's eyebrows lift like she's disappointed I'm not screaming or begging. 2 years ago, I abandoned my downtown apartment, put my promotion on hold, moved back to care for my dying father. Dr. Peter Reynolds had been respected by everyone except, apparently, the woman he married. I slipped into old patterns, stepping up when others stepped back. 14-hour hospital shifts followed by medication management, doctor appointments, household responsibilities while my mother played cards and my sister visited only when convenient. "Come on, sweetheart," I say quietly, turning from the door. "Let's get our things." We walk back into the rain toward those soggy boxes on the curb. My daughter's shoulders shake, but she doesn't cry. She's learned from watching me. I pop the trunk of my Honda and start salvaging what I can. Books with warped pages. Photo albums where colors bleed together. Her science fair ribbon with ink running down the fabric like tears. My mother steps onto the porch, watching our desperate retrieval. "Your father spoiled you," she calls out. This was always my house. I notice neighbors peering through windows across the street. Mrs. Donovan with her hand covering her mouth. The Fishers whispering behind their curtains, witnessing our humiliation. I walk back one final time, rain streaming down my face. "We'll be at the residence inn on 5th Street. Forward our mail there." My daughter tugs at my soaked scrub top. "But Grandpa's books are still inside," she whispers, her voice finally breaking. I squeeze her hand while staring directly into my mother's eyes. "Trust me, honey. This isn't over." Something flickers across her face. Surprise, maybe, at not finding the doormat she's used to walking on. Behind her, Tessa refills her wine glass, but her hand trembles slightly. As we drive away, I catch a glimpse of my mother in the rearview mirror, still standing on that porch. For the first time, I see what's always been there, but I refuse to acknowledge. Not maternal love, but resentment. Resentment of the relationship I shared with my father. A connection she never had with him. Rain drums on the car roof. Beside me, my daughter cradles Oscar's carrier. Ahead of us, complete uncertainty. But for the first time in 2 years, I feel something unexpected unfurling in my chest. It feels strangely like freedom. The hotel room looks like a disaster zone the next morning. Soggy cardboard boxes create islands across the beige carpet. My daughter's school uniform hangs over the shower rod, still dripping. Oscar huddles beneath the desk, orange for matted and damp, refusing to emerge. I've spread every salvaged possession across the floor like artifacts, cataloging what survived and what didn't. My nursing textbooks with warped pages. Her science project notes bleeding into illegibility. A family photo where my father's face has blurred into an unrecognizable watercolor ghost. I dial Michael Porter's office, my hand steadier than I feel. A crisp voice answers on the 4th ring. "This is Gianna Reynolds. I need to speak with Michael immediately about my father's estate." "I'm sorry, Miss Reynolds, but Mr. Porter is in court today and tell him it's Peter Reynolds' daughter. Tell him Marjorie has locked us out of the house." Silence hangs on the line before she says, "Hold, please." Michael's voice comes through moments later, breathless. "Gianna, what's going on?" I explain the situation like I'm reporting a patient's condition.
Clinical. Detached.
Locked doors. Changed locks. Possessions destroyed in the rain.
Just facts.
"That's impossible," Michael interrupts. "Gianna, your father transferred the house to you and your daughter's trust 6 months ago." The room seems to tilt. "What?" "Peter put the house in a trust for you and your daughter. Marjorie has no legal right to be there, much less lock you out." I sink onto the bed, legs suddenly unable to support my weight. Why wouldn't he tell me? There's a letter with the documents. He asked me not to mention it until it became necessary. My daughter emerges from the bathroom, hair wrapped in a hotel towel. She watches me with eyes that seem too old for 12 years. "I'm coming to your office," I tell Michael. "Right now." An hour later, I'm staring at legal documents spread across Michael's mahogany desk. Property transfers. Trust agreements. All signed, notarized, filed with the county. "Your father was very thorough," Michael says, sliding a sealed envelope toward me. "He wanted you to have this if something like this happened." The envelope bears my name in my father's distinctive handwriting. I break the seal with trembling fingers. My dearest Gianna, if you're reading this, then Marjorie has done exactly what I feared she might. The house is yours and your daughter's now. It always was in my heart. Marjorie has never appreciated what she has, not the home, not you, and certainly not me. I've watched her resentment grow over the years, especially toward you. You returned when I needed you most, sacrificing everything. You've always been the one who carries others, even when your own shoulders are breaking. Take care of our girl. The home will take care of you both. All my love, Dad. A single tear lands on the signature, blurring the ink like rain on cardboard. Your father knew this might happen, Michael says quietly. We have everything we need for an emergency injunction. Marjorie and Tessa are there illegally. My phone buzzes with a text from Karen Westfield, our neighbor across the street. They're rearranging furniture and painting your bedroom. Tessa's SUV has been going back and forth all day with more stuff. Tessa's moved in completely, I tell Michael, showing him the text. Within 24 hours of locking us out. Michael's mouth tightens. This was planned well in advance. I need to understand what we're facing, I say, the nurse and me needing a complete assessment before treatment. What can they do? Marjorie is your mother. She'll claim you abandoned your father, that you're an unfit mother to your daughter. Michael hesitates. Tessa called me this morning, actually. Said she's concerned about your mental health after your father's death, that you've been erratic. Erratic. Heat rises in my chest. She mentioned Tessa's husband already has his eye on converting your father's study for their twins. Another text buzzes through from Karen. The boys are jumping on your daughter's bed. I can see them through the window. Something shifts inside me. I stand and walk to the window overlooking downtown Austin. My hospital ID badge hangs from my neck, the laminated photo showing a woman in scrubs ready to save lives. I catch my reflection in the glass. Eyes hard as river stones. Jawline set. I save strangers every day, I whisper. It's time I saved us. Behind me, my daughter looks up from the box she's sorting. She watches me with cautious hope, like someone observing the first sprout pushing through scorched earth. This isn't about revenge, I tell Michael, turning back to the desk. It's about justice. I make 3 decisions in rapid succession, the way I triage patients in a mass casualty event. I'm calling in sick for the next 3 days. I need to build our case. Michael nods, already pulling out forms. I'll file for emergency possession. Your father knew this might happen, Gianna. He left everything prepared. Back at the hotel, I find Dr. Sarah Williams waiting in the lobby with 2 suitcases. Clean scrubs, clothes for both of you, and real shampoo instead of those tiny hotel bottles, she says simply. I haven't cried since finding my father's body 2 weeks ago, but Sarah's kindness nearly breaks me. My daughter's teacher, Miss Bennett, arrives an hour later with schoolwork and a quiet strength that reminds me of my father. Your daughter is one of our strongest students, she tells me privately. I've documented everything she's said about the situation for your records. By evening, the hotel room has transformed from disaster zone to command center. Michael has arranged a meeting with the bank manager, who confirms the trust details and offers a temporary credit line against the home's equity. Your father's foresight was remarkable, the manager tells me. The trust is ironclad. The phone rings again. A number I don't recognize. Gianna? It's Eleanor. My mother's younger sister, whom I haven't spoken to in years. Eleanor. I say carefully. I know what Marjorie's done. She's been planning this since Peter's diagnosis. She told me at Christmas she was going to reclaim her life once he was gone. Why are you telling me this? Because what she's doing is wrong. And because Tessa's already listed some of your father's medical equipment on Facebook Marketplace. I have screenshots. By midnight, the emergency court filing is submitted. My savings account is nearly depleted from the legal retainer, but for the first time in days, I feel something close to hope. My daughter sits on the edge of the hotel bed, stroking Oscar, who has finally emerged from under the desk. I miss Mittens, she says quietly, referring to her second cat still trapped in the house. We'll get her back, I promise. And Grandpa's books? Everything, sweetheart. Everything. She studies my face with that penetrating gaze she inherited from my father. Mom, yes. The hardest person to stand up to is your mother. She repeats the line from a book we read together last summer, but the words carry ancient wisdom now. Ici beside her, draw her close. Yes, but not as hard as letting her hurt you. My phone lights up with a text from Michael. The law is unquestionably on your side. Outside, rain taps against the window. Gentler than before. Not washing things away this time, but cleaning them. Making them new. My mother's Facebook post appeared on my phone at 3:17 in the morning a week later. I'd been awake anyway, staring at the hotel ceiling, listening to my daughter's gentle breathing from the next bed. Please pray for our family during this difficult time. After Peter's passing, Gianna has chosen to abandon the family home where she was raised. Some grief manifests as rebellion, even in adults. Your support means everything. 27 sympathetic comments already. Hearts and prayer hands from church members who'd known me since childhood. I set the phone down without replying. Documentation, not reaction. That's what Michael had emphasized yesterday. Mom, my daughter's voice came from the darkness. You okay? Just checking messages, honey. Go back to sleep. I can't. Mrs. Peterson sent me a weird text. Tessa told her mom I might not be at school because of your mental health issues. The words hit like ice water. Tessa had started spinning stories at my daughter's school. By morning, the wolves were circling. Aunt Catherine called while I was in the shower. Uncle Robert during breakfast. Cousin Jennifer during our drive to Michael's office. All of them concerned about my erratic behavior since Dad's death. They're creating a narrative, Michael said, spreading documents across his desk. Marjorie's refusing certified letters. 3 attempts already. I nodded, flipping open my notebook. Tessa's husband followed me into the hospital parking garage last night. Said I was making things harder than they need to be. Michael's eyebrows shot up. Did anyone witness this? Security cameras would have. I've already requested the footage. A smile touched the corner of Michael's mouth. You're getting good at this. The wall calendar behind him showed today's date circled in red. 1 week since the lockout. 1 week since everything changed. My nurses are documenting every minute I spent at the hospital while caring for Dad, I said, tapping my pen against the notebook. Dr. Nichols is preparing a statement about Dad's mental competency when he made the trust changes. The sheriff's office confirmed they'll enforce any court order we receive, Michael added. And I spoke with hospital administration this morning. They're offering their full support. Something unfamiliar flickered in my chest. Not the panic of that first night. Not the stunned disbelief of learning Dad had transferred the house to me. Something steadier.
Calmer.
I need my daughter's birth certificate, I said. And Dad's medical files. They're in the filing cabinet in his study. Michael's pen paused mid-note. We can request duplicates through. I want the originals. Today. 40 minutes later, I parked 3 houses down from what was legally my home. The police cruiser I'd arranged sat quietly at the corner, Officer Banks giving me a subtle nod. The walkway to the front door felt both familiar and foreign. 7 days ago, I'd stood here soaked to the skin, watching my life unravel. Today, my footsteps sounded different on the concrete. My mother answered on the 3rd knock, her face freezing mid-smile as she registered who stood before her. You're not welcome here, she said, hand gripping the door edge. I pressed record on my phone, holding it visibly. I'm legally requesting my daughter's birth certificate and my father's medical records. Tessa appeared behind my mother, face flushing. We'll call the police if you don't leave. I've already notified them I'd be here. I nodded toward Officer Banks, who'd stepped out of his cruiser. This is a documented request for my legal property. My mother's eyes welled with tears, a familiar tactic that had worked on me countless times before. After everything I've done for you. When the tears didn't move me, something shifted in her expression. The sadness hardened into something sharper, more dangerous. You think you can take what's mine? Her voice cut like glass. Your father never appreciated me either. Mrs. Daniels watered her flower beds across the street, pretending not to listen. Mr. Wilson slowed his walk, dog pausing conveniently near our driveway. The filing cabinet in Dad's study, I repeated. I'll wait here while you bring the documents. 10 minutes later, I walked back to my car with a manila envelope containing the birth certificate and a folder with Dad's medical history. Small victories. Necessary ones. The next morning, Dr. Williams met me in the hospital cafeteria before my shift. I've completed my statement about your father's care, she said, sliding a sealed envelope across the table. 2 years of watching you run yourself ragged, caring for him while working full-time. No jury would question your dedication. My daughter's teacher called that afternoon. I've documented your daughter's relationship with her grandfather. How he attended every school function when you were working. How she read to him daily during his illness. By evening, Michael had filed an emergency possession order with 17 signed affidavits. Eleanor called, he said when I arrived at his office. Marjorie's been photographing family heirlooms for an estate sale website. I felt my jaw tighten. Dad's collection? And your grandmother's silver. The antique furniture from the library. The hospital chaplain, Father Morgan, had left a message on my phone. He provided a character witness statement about my visits with Dad, the prayers we'd shared, the family Bible I'd brought to his bedside. People were choosing sides. Not the sides my mother had anticipated. Thursday brought the shift I'd been waiting for. The judge reviewed our case and expedited the hearing date. I want to deliver this personally, Michael said, holding up the notice of eviction. His eyes gleamed with something between mischief and justice. I sat in my car across the street, watching as Michael approached the front door in his crisp suit. My mother answered, accepting the certified letter with obvious reluctance. Through the windshield, I watched her face as she read the opening lines. The letter trembled in her hands when she reached the declaration. Property owner, Gianna Reynolds. Tessa appeared in the doorway, phone pressed to her ear, lips moving rapidly as she called their attorney. My mother didn't move, the paper still clutched in her hands as Michael walked back to his car. For the first time since this began, I saw something besides manipulation in my mother's expression. Understanding. The realization that I wouldn't back down. That evening, Michael spread our documentation across his conference table like a general mapping a battlefield. Court affidavits from 3 of Dad's doctors confirming his mental competency. Trust documents with the ownership transfer timeline highlighted. The photographs I'd taken of our belongings on the curb, rainwater seeping through cardboard, my daughter shivering under the porch light. The calendar is particularly powerful, Michael said, pointing to the color-coded schedule I'd maintained. Green for Dad's appointments. Blue for medication changes. Red for emergency room visits. 2 years of caretaking condensed into 12 meticulous pages. And these, he added, tapping the financial records showing every mortgage payment I'd made, every utility bill I'd covered while my mother spent her widow's pension on bridge club dues and weekend trips to Galveston. The law doesn't care about feelings, Michael said, gathering the papers into a leather portfolio. It cares about facts. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the hotel parking lot that evening. A text from Michael. Court date moved up. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. My daughter sat cross-legged on the hotel bed, Oscar purring in her lap, when I told her, "What happens if we lose, Mom?" Her voice sounded so small, nothing like the confident 12-year-old who'd aced her science presentation last month. I sat beside her, running my hand over Oscar's soft fur. "We won't. Your grandfather made sure of that." Later, after she fell asleep, I opened the folder I hadn't shown Michael. Inside was a handwritten letter from Dad to the judge, dated 3 weeks before his death, explaining why he'd transferred the house to me instead of his wife of 40 years. His elegant handwriting filled 3 pages with truths my mother never wanted exposed. Tomorrow, the final battle. But tonight, for the first time since the rain-soaked lockout, I slept without waking. The courthouse gleams like a fortress in the morning sun as I adjust my blazer. No scrubs today. Today, I am not Gianna the nurse, but Gianna the plaintiff, fighting for what's rightfully mine. My daughter stands beside me, her posture straight despite her trembling hand in mine. "Ready?" Michael Porter asks, briefcase bulging with our ammunition. I nod. We've prepared for this. Inside, the polished floors reflect our determined faces. Courtroom B smells of furniture polish and nervous sweat. I scan the room and freeze. My mother and Tessa already seated, heads bent in conspiratorial whispers. My mother looks up, her practiced smile faltering when she sees the calm in my eyes.
No hysteria. No begging.
Just quiet certainty. Michael begins arranging documents on our table. The judge assigned to our case is thorough. She'll appreciate our attention to detail. Will they make me talk? My daughter whispers, her eyes fixed on Tessa's twin boys, slouching in the back row. Only if you want to, I tell her, though Michael had prepared her just in case. Judge Harriet Caldwell enters, her silver hair pulled back severely, eyes missing nothing. Reynolds family trust dispute. Temporary possession hearing, she announces, settling into her chair. Michael rises first, presenting a leather portfolio. Your Honor, we've prepared a complete timeline documenting Dr. Peter Reynolds' decisions regarding his property. He unfolds charts,
Dates.
signatures, witness statements, irrefutable evidence of my father's intentions. We have affidavits from 3 separate physicians confirming Dr. Reynolds was of sound mind when he transferred property ownership. Michael continues, placing documents before the judge. His oncologist, neurologist, and primary care physician of over 2 decades. Michael pulls out financial records next. Bank statements demonstrating my mother's minimal financial contributions to household expenses while I covered property taxes and maintenance costs alongside my father. I notice my mother's attorney shifting uncomfortably. Tessa's face darkens with every new document Michael presents. Additionally, Michael says, tapping his tablet, we have video deposition from attorney James Wilson, who prepared the original trust documents. The courtroom screen flickers to life. My father's attorney appears, gray and dignified. Dr. Reynolds was explicit in his wishes. The property was to transfer to his daughter Gianna and granddaughter's trust upon his death. He had concerns that Mrs. Reynolds might attempt to circumvent his intentions. My mother's gasp is audible across the room. Our final witness approaches. Michael gestures toward Miss Patricia Hendricks, my daughter's school counselor, a woman with unshakable professionalism. Your daughter has exhibited significant distress since being forcibly removed from her home, she testifies. Nightmares, anxiety, decreased academic performance. The stability of her home environment was critical following her grandfather's death. I squeeze my daughter's hand under the table. She's staring straight ahead, chin raised just like my father's used to be when facing a difficult diagnosis. The judge nods. Let's hear from the respondents. My mother's attorney rises. Gordon Shaw. Expensive suit. Artificial smile. Your Honor, this entire situation stems from a tragic misunderstanding. Mrs. Reynolds had every intention of allowing her daughter and granddaughter to remain in the house temporarily. My mother produces a handkerchief, dabbing at invisible tears. I cared for my husband throughout his illness, she claims, voice quavering perfectly. Throughout our marriage, tending to his every need. Gianna was rarely home, always at the hospital. My fingers curl into my palm, nails biting flesh. A lie so blatant it steals my breath. Tessa approaches next, armed with photographs. Here's our family at Christmas, she says, showing images of 4 smiles. And here's Mom helping Dad with his medication. One carefully curated moment caught on camera, ignoring the 100 times I'd found his pills untouched when I returned from shifts. Character witnesses, from our church file forward. People who'd visited for an hour on Sundays. Gianna was rarely present for church functions, Mrs. Patterson says, avoiding my eyes. Marjorie was always there, asking for prayers for her husband. Praying publicly while neglecting him privately. The lockout was unfortunate, Shaw concludes, but necessary. Tough love. Gianna has become increasingly dependent at her age. Judge Caldwell's expression reveals nothing as she makes notes. For one terrible moment, I see doubt in her eyes. My turn comes. I rise slowly, channeling every ounce of professional composure I've developed in emergency rooms. Your Honor, I moved home 2 years ago specifically to care for my father during his illness. I begin, my voice steady. I coordinated my hospital shifts around his care needs. Michael presents my work schedules alongside my father's treatment calendars, showing how I'd arranged everything around being home when he needed me most. The courtroom door opens. A familiar figure slips in. My mother's sister Eleanor, whom I haven't seen since the funeral. My mother's face contorts in surprise. Miss Eleanor Blackwell has requested to provide testimony, Michael announces. Eleanor walks forward. I visited my brother-in-law weekly during his illness, she states firmly. On numerous occasions, I found him alone while my sister was at social engagements. It was Gianna who adjusted his medications, prepared his meals, and ensured his comfort. My mother half rises before her attorney pulls her back down. Michael produces a sealed envelope. Your Honor, Dr. Reynolds anticipated potential disputes. He prepared this letter to be presented to the court if necessary. The judge breaks the seal, reading silently. Her eyebrows rise. Mom, my daughter's voice breaks the tension. Can I say something? Judge Caldwell softens. Come forward, young lady. My daughter walks to the stand, her school uniform impeccable. My grandfather taught me chess in his study every Sunday afternoon, she begins. Even when he was really sick, he told me the house would always be there for Mom and me. That he'd made sure of it. He said Grandma didn't appreciate what she had. Tears build in my eyes, but I blink them back. Dignity, not drama, will win this fight. I just want to go home. My daughter finishes simply. I could launch into details about my mother's neglect. Instead, I say, the documented evidence speaks for itself, Your Honor. My mother stands abruptly. She manipulated her dying father, she shouts, pointing at me. Peter wasn't thinking clearly. Mrs. Reynolds, control yourself, Judge Caldwell warns. During the recess, Michael steps into the hallway. Tessa's husband Ray follows him. A security camera captures Ray's threatening whisper. You'll regret taking this case. Back in session, my mother's attorney challenges the trust documents. His argument backfails when it becomes clear they'd known about the trust for months. Their signatures on file. Mrs. Reynolds, these medical records indicate you attended only 3 of your husband's 27 oncology appointments, Judge Caldwell observes. Is that correct? My mother fumbles for an explanation. Tessa leans toward her attorney, whispering urgently. I catch fragments. Already spoke with the agent about listing. The judge's head snaps up. What agent would that be, Mrs. Peterson? Tessa blanches, realizing her mistake. A reporter sits in the back row. My mother approaches him during the next break. My ungrateful daughter abandoned her father and now wants to steal my home. My colleagues from Austin General file into the courtroom. A silent wall of support. Judge Caldwell closes her folder with finality. I am granting temporary possession of the property to Gianna Reynolds and her daughter. Effective immediately. Sheriff's Department will escort Mrs. Marjorie Reynolds and Mrs. Tessa Peterson from the property by 5 p.m. today. Final hearing is set for 3 weeks from now. My mother collapses back in her chair, her performance finally faltering. Outside the courtroom, her attorney approaches Michael. We should discuss settlement terms. I shake my head. We're past the point of negotiation. In the hallway, Tessa and Ray argue loudly. You said this would be easy, he snaps. Now where are we supposed to live? I lead my daughter toward the exit. The sunlight outside feels different. Somehow cleaner, brighter. Is it over? She asks, looking up with cautious hope. Almost, I tell her. Keys already in hand. We're going home. The phone rang at 7:15 in the morning. I stared at the caller ID, my thumb hovering over the screen. Mother. 3 days before the final hearing. Gianna. My mother's voice quavered when I answered. I didn't sleep all night thinking about this situation. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch between us. I'm still your mother. Her voice broke. Family should come first. You know that's what your father would want. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl. Dad made his wishes very clear in the trust documents. People are talking, Gianna. The whole church is praying for reconciliation. The wobble in her voice hardened. Pastor Williams called yesterday. He reminded me that Christian forgiveness requires reconciliation. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. Uncle Robert, we need to find a compromise before Thursday. This is tearing the family apart. Tessa's boys are devastated, my mother continued. They've already moved their things into the upstairs bedrooms. Now they have to pack again. Those rooms never belonged to them, I said quietly. We could share the house, she pressed. You and your daughter take the main bedroom and study. We'll take the guest room and den. Common areas can be.
No.
The word fell between us like a stone. You're being cruel, Gianna. Her voice sharpened. What happened to the daughter who nursed her father for 2 years? Who put everyone else first? She got locked out in the rain. I ended the call as another text arrived. I set my phone face down on the counter, my hands trembling slightly. Mom, my daughter stood in the doorway, Oscar winding around her legs. Was that Grandma again? Yes, honey. I forced a smile. Nothing important. Michael called an hour later. Marjorie's attorney filed a motion this morning. They're requesting a mental health evaluation, claiming your grief has impaired your judgment. My stomach clenched. Can they do that? It's a delay tactic, Michael said. But the hospital called me too. Someone filed an anonymous complaint questioning your professional stability. The words struck like physical blows. 2 years of night shifts while managing Dad's care. Never missing a medication schedule. Documenting every treatment. The school principal left me a message. I told him. Apparently Tessa's been telling parents that my daughter's not doing well in our temporary situation. I glanced toward my daughter's room, where she was quietly reading. Michael, am I being too harsh? Should I consider some kind of... No, Michael cut in. Remember what your father wrote in his letter to the judge. Marjorie has never appreciated boundaries, which is why I've drawn this one so clearly. Stay the course, Gianna. Wednesday morning, the day before the final hearing, my phone rang as I was preparing my daughter's lunch. Miss Reynolds, this is Janet from the clerk's office. We can't locate your documentation folder for tomorrow's hearing. Cold dread washed through me.
What?
All our evidence was submitted last week. It's not showing in the system. We need these documents by noon or the judge may grant another continuance. I called Michael immediately. His assistant answered. He's in court until 11. What's happening? I explained the situation as I raced to the hotel desk for the backup flash drive I'd saved. I have copies of everything, but we'll need to reprint all the affidavits and get them notarized again. I'll meet you at the office in 20 minutes. She promised. I turned to find my daughter watching me, backpack in hand. You're going to be late for school. Grandpa's tablet, she said suddenly. The blue one. He backed up all his important papers to the cloud. The password is your birthday. 3 hours of frantic work. Michael requested a delay when he finished his other case. The judge granted us exactly 90 minutes. We made it with 11 minutes to spare, Michael said, collapsing into a chair as the clerk stamped our reconstituted evidence folder. Someone deliberately misplaced our files. Just one more day, I whispered. Thursday morning dawned clear and cool. I stood by the mailbox at 9:27, watching the sheriff's department vehicles pull into the driveway. 2 deputies in crisp uniforms approached the front door while another positioned himself near the garage. Michael stood beside me, legal briefcase in hand. Are you ready for this? I nodded, unable to speak. In the car, my daughter sat clutching a framed photo of my father, her face solemn. The lead deputy knocked firmly. Sheriff's Department. Open the door, please. Tessa answered, her face flushed. What's the meaning of this? The deputy held up an official document. I have a writ of possession to execute. Are you Marjorie Reynolds? I'll get my mother, Tessa said, her voice tight. My mother appeared moments later, hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. I need to see that order. I'm not letting strangers into my home. Ma'am, I'm required by law to read this aloud. Then you'll have 20 minutes to collect essential personal belongings under supervision. As the deputy read the court order, my mother's eyes found mine across the lawn. The hatred in them was palpable. You have 20 minutes, the deputy concluded. We'll accompany you to ensure only personal belongings are removed. I remained by the mailbox as deputies entered with my mother and Tessa. Michael activated the recording feature on his phone, documenting the entire process. Inside, I heard my mother's voice rising in protest. Those are family heirlooms. They belong to my husband's mother. Ma'am, we have an inventory list provided by the court. Those items are specifically listed as property of the trust. I closed my eyes, remembering the meticulous room-by-room inventory I'd created before moving back. Every photograph, every book, every piece of silver documented with my father's signature. A deputy emerged carrying a cat carrier. Found this little guy hiding under a bed. Seems a bit malnourished. Mitten's plaintive meow made my throat tighten. I took the carrier to my daughter, who opened the door immediately, tears streaming down her face. She's so skinny, Mom, she whispered, fingers gently stroking fur through the grate. The minutes ticked by. Deputies carried out boxes of clothing and personal items, checking each against the inventory. I heard my mother's voice rising again, then Tessa's husband's deeper tones joining the argument. Sir, step back now, came a deputy's firm command. Threatening language will not be tolerated. 17 minutes after entering, my mother emerged on the porch clutching her purse. Tessa followed with a small suitcase. You'll regret this, my mother said, her voice carrying across the lawn. When you need family most, remember this moment. I met her gaze steadily. You already taught me how regret feels. Standing in the rain with my daughter. The lead deputy approached with a clipboard. Miss Reynolds, we've completed the formal transfer of possession. There are several items missing from the inventory. We've documented everything for your attorney. He handed me a ring of keys. House keys.
Garage keys.
The physical symbols of what had always been rightfully mine. Your father's medical equipment was improperly stored in the basement, the deputy added quietly. Some damage appears deliberate. We've photographed everything. My mother walked stiffly to her car, without looking back. Tessa paused at the bottom of the driveway, something like recognition flickering across her face before she turned away. Ray glared at me from their SUV until a deputy pointedly approached his window. Two vehicles pulled away in opposite directions. Neighbors who had gathered on porches and behind curtains slowly dispersed, witnesses to justice rather than drama. My phone buzzed with incoming messages. Uncle Robert. We had no idea things were this bad. Call if you need anything. The security system is reset with your code, Michael said, tucking his phone away. I've filed for a restraining order as a precaution. My daughter climbed out of the car, still holding her grandfather's photograph. She approached the porch step slowly, as if unsure whether they might disappear beneath her feet. I stood in the doorway, keys in hand. Victory should have felt triumphant, but there was only a somber stillness. A household reclaimed. A boundary restored. As Michael drove away, I noticed a white envelope in the mailbox. My mother's handwriting instantly recognizable. I slipped it into my pocket unopened. Some letters could wait for another day. The rain falls differently now, 6 months later. I stand at the kitchen window watching droplets track down the glass, remembering that night when my daughter and I stood drenched on the porch, locked out of our own lives. Dad's study remains untouched, a shrine of sorts. His medical journals line the shelves. His reading glasses rest on the desk. The only change is the small wooden plaque my daughter made. Dr. Peter Reynolds Memorial Reading Room. Sometimes I sit in his chair, breathe in what's left of him, and read his journals. Not because I must, but because I want to. My daughter's garden flourishes in the backyard despite the autumn chill. The Peace Project, she calls it. Rows of hardy mums and late-season vegetables, each plant tagged with careful handwriting. She tends it daily with a dedication that reminds me of her grandfather. The promotion letter from Austin Memorial sits framed on my desk. Nursing Supervisor, Emergency Services. Dr. Williams insisted I accept it. Your father would be proud, she'd said, squeezing my hand. And you've earned it. I'd cried then. The first tears I'd allowed myself since the eviction. The new security system hums quietly in the background. 6 cameras, motion sensors, reinforced locks. Not from fear, but from a promise to never again be vulnerable. Mom, my daughter's voice floats from the front porch. Come watch the rain with me. I pour 2 mugs of chamomile tea and join her. We sit in matching rocking chairs, just as we did on countless evenings with Dad before his illness took him. The rain falls steadily, turning our yard into a glistening canvas. It's raining just like that day, my daughter says softly, fingers wrapped around her mug. She's grown taller these past months, her face losing some of its childish roundness. The trauma aged her, but the healing has given her quiet strength. Yes, I say, watching water sheet off the new porch roof. Same weather, different feeling. My daughter rocks gently, her eyes tracking the rainfall. This is our home now, she says. Not a question, but a statement of hard-won truth. I reach across the space between us, squeezing her hand. It always was. The rain that once symbolized our rejection now sounds like a lullaby. Nature's percussion accompanying our evening ritual. Later, I sit at my desk, journal open before me. Therapy homework, technically. But it's become more than that. Tonight's prompt stares up at me. How has your definition of strength changed? My pen hovers, then begins to move. Strength isn't just endurance. For so long, I thought being strong meant carrying everyone's burdens, never complaining, always saying yes. I confused sacrifice with love. But real strength knows when to draw lines.
When to say no.
When to protect what matters most. The hospital committee invitation sits unanswered beside my journal. 6 months ago, I would have accepted immediately, stretching myself thinner in the name of dedication. Now I see the request differently. Time with my daughter is not negotiable. Some boundaries aren't betrayal. They're preservation. I glance at the framed quote on my wall. Dad's handwriting familiar as my own. Strength isn't carrying everything. It's knowing what to put down. Oscar, now healthy and plump, jumps onto the desk and settles on my journal. His purr vibrates against my hand. Another small victory. The cat, who once cowered during those hotel weeks, now sprawls with confident abandon. Last night, my daughter slept through until morning.
No nightmares.
No anxious midnight calls. The first time since the lockout. I'd stood in her doorway at dawn, watching her peaceful breathing, and felt something tight inside me finally release. Dad's medical equipment, the hospital bed, the oxygen concentrator, has found new purpose. The donation to Austin Community Clinic came with a single condition: a plaque honoring Dr. Peter Reynolds. Service transformed into legacy. Friday movie nights have become sacred ritual. Just my daughter and me on the sofa, bowls of popcorn balanced on our laps, Oscar wedged between us. The family we've chosen. Small but mighty. At the hospital, Jessica, a young nurse with haunted eyes, sought me out last week. My mother keeps taking my paycheck, she'd whispered. Says I owe her for raising me. I'd recognized the shame in her voice. The confusion of obligation twisted into exploitation. Let me share something I learned the hard way, I'd told her, pulling out the caregiver rights guide I'd created. 20 pages of resources, legal protections, and boundary scripts. The project that grew from our pain now helping others navigate their own. My daughter's school presentation, What Makes a Home, won first place last month. Her teacher called it surprisingly mature. On the final slide, my daughter had written, "A home isn't just walls and a roof. It's a place where you're safe to be yourself." The spare bedroom that once collected dust now hosts Sarah, a traveling nurse whose apartment flooded last week. The same colleague who brought us clothes during those first desperate hotel nights.
Circles completing themselves.
My phone chimes with a notification. A Facebook post from Tessa showing her and my mother arguing over furniture at an estate sale. The comments section brims with their public drama. I quietly block both accounts. Eleanor's message arrived yesterday.
Tentative.
Hopeful. Maybe it's time for healing? Family should find its way back together. My response took hours to craft. Eleanor, I value your place in our lives. But reconciliation requires acknowledgement and change. Neither has happened. My door remains open to you, but my boundaries with Marjorie and Tessa are not negotiable. The unopened letter from my mother sat in my desk drawer for months. I finally read it last night. 5 pages of justifications, selective memories, and subtle blame. No apology. I filed it away without response, choosing peace over the exhaustion of engagement. The rain intensifies as evening deepens. My daughter brings her watercolors to the porch, capturing the glistening yard in blues and purples. I watch her work, struck by how her fingers move with certainty across the paper. Wind stirs the chimes hanging from the eave, the ones my daughter and I made from Dad's medical alert tags. They catch the light from the porch lamp, sending gentle music into the damp air. Some storms wash things away, I say, watching raindrops catch in my daughter's hair. Others help things grow. My daughter looks up, brush poised mid-stroke. I like this storm better. The security light flickers on as dusk settles, illuminating the handmade sign at the end of our driveway. Reynolds Residence. Not a declaration of ownership, but of presence, of persistence. I take a sip of my tea, watching the rain paint patterns on the garden path. 6 months ago, I stood in a hotel room wondering if we'd ever feel whole again. Today, wholeness looks different than I imagined. Smaller, quieter, more intentional. My daughter sets down her paintbrush and leans against my shoulder. Mom, yes, sweetheart. I'm glad we fought back. I kiss the top of her head. Me too, baby. Me too. The rain continues its gentle percussion. Inside our home, warmth glows through windows. Outside, the world moves on. But here on this porch, we've found something worth more than winning.
We've found ourselves.
You know, sometimes the people who are supposed to protect us become the ones we need protection from. Sometimes saying no to family is the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and our children. Sometimes the rain that seems like it's washing everything away is actually clearing the path for something better. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your peace, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, even with family. Especially with family. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and turn on notifications because every week I'm bringing you real stories about real people who found the courage to stand up for themselves. Stories that might just give you the strength you need for your own journey. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever had to walk away from toxic family? What boundaries did you have to set? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, you're not alone in this. We're building a community of people who understand that sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when the rain starts falling. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stand strong, set those boundaries, and never apologize for protecting your peace.